Dr. Brennan, again, for just your expertise, your wonderfulness. I hope that if you guys were not on the last webinar, that you got to check it out on the link we posted. Dr. Brennan is a wonderful colleague and friend, and he brings great, very specific CBT techniques to us that I think are really concrete and helpful. So we at NAMI Montgomery County are just happy that we can, work together and be here to connect, even if it's over Zoom. And again, I think before a few joined, I know that it's Easter Sunday, but we had this scheduled and really wanted to give people some good self-care and wellness on a day that I can't speak for all of you. You can see some of the chats. I think that a lot of us are having very different holidays than we usually have. So wellness and self-care is super important. And I'm not going to ramble on, but we're thankful that each of you are here. And Dr. Brennan, very thankful for you, just for you being willing to share all of your goodness with us. And thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm really excited to be here today. It's definitely, I think everybody who's celebrating a holiday, it's very different for all of us. I think today was particularly hard. It seems like every time we figure out something, another thing gets, comes up as difficult. So I think it's a difficult time. Thank you for joining me on this Sunday. So welcome, thank you again, and thank you so much, NAMI Montgomery County, for organizing this and pulling it together. My name is Dr. Aaron Brennan. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry at Drexel's College of Medicine, where I lead a center where we continue to develop, disseminate, and provide recovery-oriented cognitive therapy for psychosis, a specific version of CBT for psychosis that I was fortunate to partner with Aaron Beck and the whole team when they were at Penn in developing. So it's been a huge part of my life. As well, I like to talk about wellness and think about wellness because I really see recovery as something that we all can do. And it's not just sort of put aside for individuals with mental illness. And so this is a talk that I've given a couple times. I'm excited to give it here. So this is a community talk. Viewing or participating today in this community talk is meant really for informational purposes. I hope that it's of help to you. I hope that it's of use. Viewing the webinar, it doesn't really constitute that we're engaging in any type of formal treatment or that I'm doing an intervention or Drexel University. So if there's something that somebody you're working with is telling you to do and this is different, then feel free to think it out. If I can be of service, of course I would love to be, but just to sort of put that out there. Okay, so we're in this really unprecedented time, and I feel like the more I say this, and every week that I say this and it goes by, I almost feel like I'm becoming like cliche in saying this, but I think it's worth us always stepping back and remembering that this is a weird time. That's a scientific term. Just weird. And by the way, I have friends all over the globe now, and all of them have been saying the same thing. It's just really weird. And many of my colleagues are people who specialize in weird things that happen, and it's just so unprecedented. There's this high level of uncertainty. In fact, the longer it goes on, it almost feels like the more uncertain it becomes. Every time we seem to solve one problem and one thing gets figured out, 3 new concerns pop up. So we're facing a large amount of uncertainty. And interestingly, uncertainty is not our area of expertise. Humans don't particularly like uncertain situations. In fact, throughout our history, we've usually made the worst decisions during times of uncertainty. And so we like things to be really predictable. It's sort of the way that we're wired. And so as a result, we're all feeling sort of discombobulated. And I would say, and I'm going to speak personally for myself, that this sort of disquiet that we feel, it's for me personally, it struck me at the most unpredictable times. So even my reaction to this uncertain situation has become uncertain. So it's sort of this runaway ball. We're at a time where we have the largest amount of information available at our fingertips, which is, a wonderful thing to have. We're also at a time where we have the largest amount of information available at our fingertips, which is a terrible thing, right? So we can constantly get stuck in this attempt to search things out and figure things out and constantly be trying to do that. So it's sort of a double-edged sword, the amount of information that we constantly have coming at us. We're more connected, but we also can feel so much more isolated. And the fact that we're becoming more comfortable with connecting through the internet will start to make it something that we take for granted. So we could easily end up really isolated. And particularly if we are doing physical distancing the way that we're being instructed to do, without paying attention, we can start becoming much, much more isolated. And I want us to start adopting and pushing out the phrase that the World Health Organization has adopted. They have adopted the phrase of physical distancing. They do not call it social distancing because they do not want us to socially distance. They want us to physically distance. They want us 6 feet or 12 feet, depending on where you live in the country, apart. They're not demanding that we be socially distant, right? So what we're doing today, it's great. Nobody's getting COVID from us doing a webinar. The other problem is that there's no understanding or clear end in sight. We really don't know. As being people in Pennsylvania, we all just found out that, many of our kids or all of our kids are not going back to school this year. I don't know what's going to happen next year. So many things are changing, and it's this constant state of uncertainty. That can lead to a high level of suspiciousness. I think there, when things are uncertain, the next question is, why are they so uncertain? When people don't have answers for us, the next question is, why don't you have an answer for me? And those are the seeds of suspiciousness, which can make us further away from each other in our lives. So we're talking about a high level of anxiety. And I'll say that people don't typically make great choices when they're anxious, right? Animals don't make good choices when they're anxious. Fear is fine, it's a great warning, but anxiety usually messes stuff up. It's one of its beautiful gifts that it can give us as humans. So let's think about sort of a nice guide to mental wellness or mental health during this time. So the first thing is going to be about connection. How do we maintain our connections? I bet if I ask you guys at the end, there are lots of, unique ways that you have been already maintaining your connections. The next one is, how do we stay active? How do we do those things, right? Our parents all told us busy hands are happy hands. And so that's going to be true. And we're going to think about, how do we utilize activity to the best of its ability? The next thing is going to be about setting goals. How are you going to be different when the isolation is over? And different in a good way. What will you have accomplished? What will you have watched? What will you have done? So we're going to talk about setting goals. And I think the important takeaway of this slide so far is the first three things that we've talked about are not about worry or concern or symptoms. It's about, what are we going to do, not what are we going to stop. So the answer is, adding to our lives will be the answer for mental wellness, not trying to sort of pull out all the weeds. We will talk about managing worry because, I have a magnet on my refrigerator downstairs that says, worry's like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. So we're going to talk about, how do we manage worry, because worry is really is normal, right? It makes sense that we're going to be worrying during this time, but we need to figure out how to keep that in check. We're going to talk about self-esteem. How do we keep our self-esteem up? Because again, as we're less connected, as this situation goes on, as we don't have control, that can hurt our self-esteem, which can lead to more worry, which can lead to us being less connected, which can lead to all of these things starting to break down. So we need to attend to our self-esteem in this time. How do we start this idea of working from home? For the people on the call who are working, for the people on this call who know people who are working from home, that can be a really big struggle, and it can either really aid our mental wellness or it can really be a big hit to our mental wellness. And then we're going to talk a lot about how do we schedule wellness, because scheduling wellness is going to be really, really important for all of us. Connection. Right? Connection is going to be the whole ball game here. We're talking about physical distancing, and that's really important. There are some ideas that the physical distancing that we've been doing has already led to a flattening out of that curve, which will allow all of our medical services to keep up and hopefully reduce even more overwhelm on the system. The problem is that humans are not designed to isolate. We're not designed to be alone. In fact, to that point, humans are so are designed to connect so much that we're biologically prepared. Our brains are prepared to develop a phobia or a severe fear towards social rejection, getting kicked out of the group. And it makes sense. Some of the other things we're biologically prepared to fear, right? So we're biologically prepared to fear, you know, snakes and spiders, right? Heights and enclosed spaces. All of those make sense. They're all dangers to our survival, right? And we're really designed to survive. That's what phobias and fears are designed to do, is to keep us alive a little bit longer. But when we think about it, why then is social rejection something that we're biologically designed to fear? And it really comes down to that we're a tribe. We're tribal creatures. The reason humans rose above the other animals really came from the idea of our ability to connect and stay connected, right? We don't have tusks or talons. We don't have fangs, right? You know, we don't have any of those things. We don't spit poison or any of the things that animals do. But what we can do is we can organize and we can connect. And so, in fact, there's all these amazing parts of our body that are designed to keep us connected. So the problem that we get into with isolation is there can be unintended consequences. We're constantly in a state of threat when we're isolating from other people. So how do we stay connected during the isolation? That's kind of the big question. It also seems a little contradictory, which is sort of fun because I like that. So these are some of the things that we may, so people may be like, oh, I'm already doing that. Or they may be things that we go, oh, that's a really cool idea. So most people hopefully by now have been exposed to things like video calls and things like that. That's your Zooms, that's your GoToMeetings. Those are all the things. I know a lot of times I think, gosh, I wish I had invested in Zoom, you know, before all this stuff broke out, because Zoom is like a new way of being. Your FaceTimes, your Skypes, all of those things. But how do we use them in a more dynamic format, right? So not just having the calls, but you know, having coffee, you know, having happy hour, you know, having breakfast or going on walks with people. All of these things are ways that we can connect with people. We're planning on scheduling Mad Libs Monday with my mother-in-law, so we can do that because we like doing Mad Libs and we think that they're pretty funny. And so we're going to do that together because we have a bunch of Mad Lib books, just like everybody else in the world, that are half finished. And so we figure we'll just finish them. Yeah, and then we'll go online and find other Mad Libs. So those are all kind of like fun, quirky ways to do it. I know I've got a happy hour coming up. And it's kind of, this is this part of it. I have this very weird thought that what if by the end of the isolation, there's things that are better? I mean, I know that seems very like Pollyanna, but I've got a happy hour coming up, and it's going to be with friends of mine who are in Oxford, England, Manchester, England, Nashville, Tennessee, and we're all going to come together. And I would have never done that, but they're all stuck in their house. And whether they're all in Oxford, and they can't get together, or here. And so I can sort of connect with these people who I might not have connected with otherwise. Then there's ways that we can do it as families, right? Using video calls, thinking about stuff like bedtime stories. My younger brother has 2 kids, and all the time, every day at 9 or 10, somebody from my house is usually a guest for circle time. So I've read stories, I've read books. Halfway through, I live in Lansdale, so they're doing construction right outside of my on the street outside of my house. So they had to, when Governor Wolf shut it all down, all of those things are still there. And so at first I thought, this is terrible. There's these like tractors and construction tools sitting right on the street out front of my house. Well, I ended up doing circle time, and I read this great book that's all about these tractors called I'm Dirty. So I read the whole book, and then with my niece and nephew, and then I turned the video around at the end, and we actually went and sort of walked through all of these construction tools, which we could do. And there's bedtime stories. My brother was making a birdhouse and I was fixing bicycles. So we did that together. He just started FaceTiming me. So I opened it up and they worked on their birdhouse, and my niece showed me what color they were painting it. And I showed them the bike I was working on. We did it together. I cooked Passover with my mom. While she was cooking, I was cooking, we FaceTimed. There's all of these really creative things that you can do, and you can do together. And so the important part, and you're going to hear this from me over and over and over again, the important part is to schedule these things. Because just as much as it could be, we could get it done and have it done, we could also forget to do those things. Oh, that was the other thing. My mom started playing canasta with friends from when we were little, when my brothers and I were little kids. Right. And so now she's playing canasta with them and all going and doing video while they're doing that. They can play canasta online, they FaceTime. It's all opportunities for video calls. In fact, it was funny. When I was cooking with my mom, she goes, "Oh, Aaron, I got to go. I love you, honey. No. I'm playing canasta with Paula and Janet." And I'm like, "Really?" She's like, "We have an appointment, Aaron. We've got to go. Bye." And that was it. And so in that way, we can really get nice and connected. If for some reason you don't have video calls, the first thing I would say is this, is if you don't have video calls, contact somebody who might know how to do them and see if you can get them going, right? So we've all been sort of, knocking the dust off of these things over the last, whatever, month, or I don't even know how long we've been physically distancing. So see if you can figure it out. And listen, if technology is not your thing, no problem. Somebody will help you. Find an older person or a younger person who can help you, and you can learn. If for some reason you don't have these capabilities at all, there's always the old-fashioned way of doing things. You can text people. So, there's lots of fun things that we can do. You can send texts. You can send memes. You can play, memes are those little pictures, right? So earlier today, we ended up doing a whole bunch of Easter memes back and forth so we could enjoy them, right? And it says, I said no groups larger than 10 peeps. And so we sent those around. It was really fun, kind of memes. And it was sort of not everybody had to be on at the same time, but we sent it around for a little while. 4 of us were on it. There are games that you can play through the internet, through texting nowadays. And so looking at those types of things, sharing pictures with other people, we do that. I do that all the time, sharing pictures or videos. There were a number of us who shared physical education. And so I showed what some of my kids were doing. Some of my friends showed what their kids were doing. And it was really fun. And so my kids got to see what they were doing. I got to see what their kids were doing, and it was a really nice sharing. So sharing, using text message, but also, again, remembering to regularly do this. Then there's other versions. There's sort of online groups, and I'm not saying people need to join things like Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. I'm saying that these are things that are available to us. And so on things like Facebook, there are these active meetup groups, right, where you can go on live and watch. I watched Billy Joel did a viewing party of his concert at Shea Stadium, and so we watched it, and then we let people know we were watching it, and then we were live watching it with a bunch of people from, you know, all over the country. And so there are these active meetup groups that you can do. A lot of people are using Zoom for things like Seder's and for like Easter. People are using these active meetup groups for, I have a friend who's a rabbi, and he's done bar and bat mitzvahs through these active meetup groups. You know, some are through Zoom, some are through Facebook. So searching those out and figuring out the things that you want to do. And they span all different types of topics. Then there's these sort of these wonderful passive groups, you know, passive online groups, right? So it's sort of, you know, it might be a group that they might have created on, say, Facebook. NAMI Manco is a great example. We have sort of that thing, and then people post to it. One example of a passive group activity online. I just did this as a lark. I didn't even do this because I knew I was giving these talks. But the second or third day that I did it, there was this thing going around Facebook saying, put up your 10th photo in your camera roll. And so I just thought, okay, put up a picture of your pet. Put your fur baby up, your scale tween, your feather teen up, and let me, you know, let's see, you know, I'd love to see it. And then I put a picture of Bonnie, who's my dog, up. It was interesting that in the first hour, which, by the way, I think I posted it at 6:30 or 7 in the morning, I had 35 posts from 2 different time zones. By the end of the day, I had it from 4 different continents. So people are hungry for this type of passive connection. Since I did that, I've seen I Spy, I've seen just all kinds of things. You know, I really love the beach. Show me your favorite picture of the beach with nobody in it. You know, all of these different things along the way. And so there's these passive ways of staying connected, but it really gives us that opportunity for some connection. Then some of us are fortunate, or depending on the day, we either feel really fortunate or we feel unfortunate, depending on how we're feeling for that day, for this sort of in-house connection. So if you're at home and you're living with somebody, or if you're living near somebody, and you guys can talk through like a solid door or something like that, 6 feet away from each other, scheduling time together. You know, it's really easy for all of us to, if we have a lot of devices or whatever, to get on our devices and not be connected. And so figuring out what is that time that we're going to have together. I know in our family, we do, for a while we were doing the news, although we're sort of like getting a little bit away from doing the news. And then we do Jeopardy. We've been going for nighttime family walks and reading. We're reading the second Hunger Games book together. Which is just something for time together. And then scheduling time alone, right? So schedule the time for when you're going to be together, but then, you know, getting a break from people. And so there are times where we go, okay, we're having dinner, we're doing this, and then we're done. Go find what you want to do. We'll see you for bedtime. We'll say, you know, say goodnight, but we're not, you know, we're, you know, on certain nights, this is it, you know, or, you know, mommy and I are going out in the backyard and we're going to sit by the fire. Nobody else is invited. And even my wife and I have spent some time just saying, okay, cool. You know what? I'm just going to take some time to go. I'm going to go up to the office and play a game or something like that. Just some time separate, because if we're really doing physical distancing really, really well, that means that we're stuck in a house or an apartment or a condo or whatever you live in, and we're really sort of stuck together. So make sure you get that breather time as well. But connection is the whole ball game. Remember that there are people in our lives, in our pre-isolation lives, that might not have somebody to connect with. So make sure that we keep track of those people and make sure that we stay connected with them too, right? Obviously attend to your own connection, but then think about who might be alone. How can you reach out to those people and see that they're okay? How do we get them up to speed on some of these technologies so that they can stay connected? Because we're all mentally, we're mentally well when we're all mentally well. And I don't know that there's an organization that exemplifies this better than NAMI, about the fact that mental wellness is a team sport, and we're all on the same team here. So that brings us to the next part of it, right? So connection's really important, but then activity, right? Busy hands are happy hands. I know that my wife's been talking with friends of hers from childhood, and one of them finally started making like scrunchies, because those are, I guess, back in style now. And then we realized she could be making masks, and so she started making masks as well. So we're really at our best when we're engaged in things that are meaningful to us. So the good news that we've got is this isolation provides us with lots of extra time. But the bad news is this isolation provides us with a lot of extra time. So many of us are come from being accustomed to having a high amount of schedule, right? We're accustomed to always being on the go, always sort of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I remember when this thing first started and the first weekend came and we weren't going to swim team and fencing and back to Wegmans and, like a million things that we had to do. And every chore was done by 9 a.m. It's just so much more time on our hands. And so making that shift. Also, and I'm not going to speak as much to it, making sure that you're balancing. So if you're a really busy person who's always responding to other people, this might be a time where there's no front door that you close behind you when you get off of work anymore. Right? So my day, my work is this thing here, right? And so making sure that we have time to sort of stop if this crisis has put us on overdrive. So we want to make sure that we're scheduling activities, right? People are always, we want to think about 3 main activities, and we want to be really purposeful about it, because it'll be very easy to let things get out of whack. We know that people are happiest and content when they engage in 3 kinds of activities, right? Pleasurable activities, right? So we need fun in our lives, right? We want to do, the old saying, all work and no play makes Papa Smurf a dull fellow, right? So we need fun in our lives. And we know that. Think about people who have gotten, say, back into recovery, and they decide that they're going to do every single really, really hard meeting, and they're not going to miss one meeting. And then, after a week, all of a sudden they're burnt out and they're out of recovery and they've relapsed, right? We know that that's a problem. But the opposite is true too. We need things that make us feel proud, right? So if all we do is fun stuff, then we miss that opportunity, to feel good about ourselves. And that's why we see, if you think about sort of people who are extremely wealthy, you go, well, how could you end up being depressed? It's, many people don't have anything purposeful, nothing meaningful in their lives. There was a great line from Shakespeare, from Henry IV, where Shakespeare writes, if all the days were holidays, right? Holidays, to sport, right? To play sports would be as tiresome as to toil to work. So if all the days were holidays, to sport would be as tiresome as to toil. Right? So he knew that if everything's fun, nothing's fun. It just becomes work. So we need masterful and we need pleasurable activities. And then here we are again, we need time with other people. So how do we sort of start to balance it out? Sort of like how a car has lots of different types of fluids, right? We have oil, we have gas, we have antifreeze. We need to make sure that we have all of the fluids that we need in order to be healthy. And we know that when we schedule these things out, it makes us more likely that they're going to happen, right? And think about our own lives. We're always more likely to do things when we schedule them in. So making sure that you're scheduling your walks, making sure you're scheduling some fun time, right? I know that watching the news and watching Jeopardy or going for the morning walk, those are in my schedule. So those are things that I absolutely stop for. And early on, it was hard for me to stop for those things, but now it's a, you know, it's an absolute, there's no question to stop at those times. And so we want to schedule those things in. The next part of it is goals, right? What are the things that we want to get done by the end of it? With all of this time on your hands, look around your house, look around where you live. Is there something you've been wanting to do, right? What do you want to get done when the isolation's over? Right? Do you have projects that you want to get done? Right? There's something that you've been talking about doing for years and years and years, and you've never gotten around to. Is there some learning that you want to get done? Maybe you've always wanted to brush up on your French, or, you know, learn Chinese, or learn how to play guitar. And you bought a guitar 5 years ago, but you've never gotten around to doing it. There are tons of wonderful apps out there that you can do. Maybe there's a book you've been wanting to read, or a movie. Listen, if anybody wanted to watch The Irishman, you've got the 5.5 hours to watch it now. So there you go. Is there a series you've been wanting to watch and do? Is there spirituality that you've been wanting to return to? You know, our daily lives, you know, can just, you know, go and go and go. And for, you know, months and years, we can say, I've been wanting to do one of these things, right? I've been wanting to get back and sort of put spirituality back in my life. But all of a sudden, you know, a year goes by and we haven't done any of those things. So what will you say that you've gotten done at the end of the isolation? This office behind me, right at the beginning, sort of the day after we, it was announced in the schools, you know, Thursday they closed the schools in Montgomery County. And that Sunday, before it was really locked down, we ran over to Home Depot. And so this office that I'm showing here, we, you know, my wife said, you think we could paint it and organize it? And we did. So it went from that to this, and it's quite lovely, and we're enjoying it, and it's exciting. And there are other projects that we've got on our to-do list to try to get done during this time. And so just setting them out, because as we accomplish these things in our lives, we feel better about ourselves. We look around, everybody hangs out in this office now, which is really fun. And being up here and spending a lot of time in this office, office/guest room, is really much more pleasurable these days, right? It's not this sort of like junky room for us. So that brings us to the question about worry, right? And starting to think about it, worry during the isolation. In times of uncertainty, worry is going to be a natural reaction. Worry is our mind's way. It's actually, worry, believe it or not, is more of a behavior. So to understand what it is, it's not actually a feeling, it's a behavior. Worry is the mind's way of preparing for a negative future. It's sort of our brain's way of bracing for this negative future that we see coming. People don't worry about, you know, how great they're going to spend their $1 million when they hit the lottery. That's not what worry does. What worry does is it sort of prepares us for this negative future. And in fact, there's some research that actually came out of Penn State where they found that individuals, when they worry, they feel a little bit of relief, right? Because they sort of bracing for this negative future. The problem is that when we worry, it actually increases our anxiety. And so in the short run, we feel better, but in the long run, we continue, it makes things worse. It's this attempt to prepare for a negative future. But what worry really is it's not actually preparing us for anything. What worry is it's sort of like problem solving, but it's if problem solving always stopped at the problem generation section of problem solving, and it never actually gets into actually solving any of the problems. And so what we do is we're constantly sort of torturing ourselves with all the worst things that could possibly happen. There's a great line from the movie Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, where Newt Scamander says, "The way I see it, worrying means you suffer twice." I think that's a great way to think about worry. But it actually doesn't prepare you any better. And in fact, worry can actually stop us from seeing opportunities that are in front of us because we get these sort of blinders on for where the danger is going to be. So let's start with some of the ways that we can sort of beat back worry. We can sort of win against worry. The first thing is to follow the instructions of the professionals. I think I counted the other day, there's like 6 things that they say you should do. I'm going to promise you now, there's not some magical secret Google document out there if you search long enough, or if you think about it enough, or if you ask enough people, that you're going to find that tells you the real things you're supposed to do, right? So it's things like physically distance, stay 6 feet away, avoid stores that you don't need to go out to. If you have to sneeze or cough, into your elbow, right? Wash your hands and wash them a little bit more frequently. If you're sick, don't go out. If you're going to a public place, wear a mask. You know, that's been pretty shocking to me when I've had to go to Wegmans, that I found that there are people out there who are still not wearing masks. And there's sort of a handful of other things that you're supposed to do. Do them. I'm not saying don't do them. Do them. They're printing them on the CDC website because they want you to do them. Do them and do them right. Once you've done that, understand that you have engaged in the behavior that they're asking for. So then we need to start moving toward practicing some acceptance, understanding that there's no 100% guaranteed way to stop yourself from becoming ill. It's the truth. There is actually none of these guidelines are designed to stop you from getting the illness. What it's doing is reducing the likelihood that you get the illness. And so the more you adhere to it, the more you're going to reduce the likelihood. But let's say if there's a 5% chance, that's a 5% chance. And so there's a chance that of the, 10 of us, I think, that are on this video today, there's a chance that one of us might get it. I've known now a number of people who have gotten it, and not people who were not following what they were supposed to be doing. And I think that I think one of the things that frees us is practicing acceptance, accepting that there is a chance that some of us are going to get this illness before this whole pandemic is over. Understanding that for many of us, it's going to be really horrible. And people I've heard describe it, they say it feels like a truck hit you. And you feel really, really terrible. Accepting that it's going to be scary and bad and terrible. Accepting doesn't mean that it's okay, but accepting that there's a chance that any of us could get this illness, even if we follow the directions all the way. Once we practice acceptance, then it's easier for us to focus in on what we're supposed to be doing versus being scared of what's going to happen to us. But really, once we accept it, then we don't have to worry about, am I going to get it? Am I not going to get it? There's a chance that all of us could get it. Starting to practice some mindfulness, right? I don't know if how many people on this call or on this video have practiced mindfulness in their lives, and whether they found it useful or not. If you've thought about doing mindfulness in the past and you've never done it before, like I said before, you got lots of time. So there are wonderful apps out there to help you learn it. There are apps like Calm, there's YouTube videos. There's an app that I frequently talk to the individuals I serve. This is, by the way, I have no financial stake in this app whatsoever. The app is called Headspace. Head as in head, space as in what we're asking everybody to give each other right now. So the app is called Headspace. They actually, it's a wonderful way because they give you these digestible ways of, and sort of fun ways of learning mindfulness. There are 10 free sessions that you can do as many times as you want. There's a 3-minute, a 5-minute, and a 10-minute version. And what I tell all the individuals that I serve is if you're going to do it, do the 3-minute. I don't care how excited you are about mindfulness. Do the 3-minute version, because you can do anything in your life for 3 minutes. Also, it's important, there are videos that come along with it. Watch the videos. They're very important, and they're really fun. And some artists made the videos, so you might as well give them the respect of watching the video. But do it and try it. What mindfulness does is it actually just gives us a space from the thoughts and all of the things going on in our minds, the chasing after the worry. And it allows us to sort of sit on the sidelines and just watch the thoughts go versus getting wrapped up into them. It's a wonderful practice to have during this time. Not to be surprised, connect with other people. If I'm busy connecting with you guys, I'm not sitting here worrying about what could possibly happen to me. I'm in the middle of talking with you guys. And so your brain can only focus in sort of on one thing at a time. So connection's a really great way to do that. Also, connection allows us to talk things out, right? It doesn't always have to be fun stuff. So we may find that as we're talking and connecting with other people, that they might have some of the same worries as we do, or they may have information, or they may have tried something. They may have an answer to the problem that we're trying to solve. And so connecting with other people is of real value during this time to sort of take our minds off of our worries. The final one's going to seem really weird. But worries are a type of thought. And thoughts aren't like sticks, right? A stick, if you throw it, it lands where it lands. Thoughts are more like boomerangs. The harder you throw them away, the faster they come back at you. And so if you want to test it out, for the next 5 seconds, I want you to think about anything in the world except a pink elephant over my head eating my hair. What are you thinking about? You're thinking about the elephant, aren't you? That's okay. It's because what we know is that thought suppression doesn't work. So the more we play sort of like whack-a-mole with worries, or the more we sort of play, tetherball and try to hit the worries away, the more those worries are going to come back. And so it's not about wallowing in the worry, but just sort of sitting there, letting it sit there for a little while and seeing. You may find that your worry sort of gets up and goes, this isn't fun, and might walk away all on its own. But just taking some time and sitting with the worries instead of trying to sort of push them away as much as you can. That brings us to the concept of self-esteem, right? As we're disconnected from people, as we feel helpless in our lives, and many of us, some of the strongest people I know are feeling helpless during these times. As we feel like others are dictating what we can and can't do, that can take a hit on our self-esteem, right? The way that we see ourselves as capable and as likable and as knowledgeable and as strong, right? It can start to tamp that down a little bit. We might start feeling a little bit worse about ourselves. As our self-esteem goes down, we have more time for negative thoughts, right? The worries feel a little bit more grippy on us. If we start thinking, why try? It's never going to work out anyway. I start becoming a little bit less productive during my day. Isolation is going to energize all of those problems. So what we want to do is take some time to focus in on some of the successes. We're 4 weeks into it. What have you been successful at doing? And if you say nothing, I want you to take a breath, sit there for a second, and then really think about it. Have you been, making dinners? Have you stretched your food? Have you thought, ooh, I really want to go to to Giant, but you chose to not do that? Did you get out for a walk? Did you really want to go do something, but you chose not to do it because that would violate physical distancing? Are you away from your family on Easter or Passover or another holiday? If you did, then you were successful. And so really taking some time to sort of enumerate, write them out. What are the things that you're being successful at? And then think about helping others, right? Even using physical distancing. How can you help somebody else out, right? Maybe it's helping them learn how to use, a video chat. Maybe it's just sending them a nice message. any of those things that we can do. Those are the ways that we all start feeling a little bit better about ourselves. Remembering that we're all in it together. So as we know that we're all in it together, these are the things that can help sort of boost our self-esteem. And give yourself a break. It's not easy, right? So just remember that, like, you're a flawed human being, just like everybody else. That brings us to the questions around working from home. Some of us might not be working, which is, if you're sort of past the days of working, that's great. If you're not able to work right now because your job is not a job that has been able to move to working from home, really thinking about how do you make use of your time and reach out and do those things. And then for people who are working from home, understanding that it can be really stressful, right? I remember at the beginning of this thing, people went, "Woo, I get to work from home." And then they're like, "Oh my goodness, I've got a parent from work now." And so it can be stressful, right? I've got 11-year-old and a 14-year-old. So that's like, they're sort of self-sufficient, except when all of a sudden one of them decides they want to cook something and they need me to help them right away. But I'm putting together a webinar, and I've got individuals that I'm serving, and I've got supervisions, and I've got a million different things going on. That's not easy. So acknowledging that this is going to be stressful. My brother and his wife, they've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. That's like really, really, really stressful. And so just practicing some acceptance. This is going to be stressful. We start asking ourselves questions. What are people going to think about me? Are they going to judge me? That I'm working from home and my kids are there and things like that. What if my kid needs me in the middle of it? What am I going in the middle of a meeting? What am I going to do? What if the water heater goes and I need to replace it, and the only time the guy can come is in the middle of my meeting, which happened to us. I've got some good news. Almost everyone who's working is working from home. If you're not working from home right now, you're one of the heroes, and we thank you. And we thank you for your sacrifice in going out and doing these things. If you are working from home, you're also one of the heroes, right? You're making sure that physical distancing is happening. And as much as it can feel annoying and pointless, this idea of physical distancing, it's really important. And I know that it can feel really abstract as well, but it's really important to keep this up. So that brings us to this idea of scheduling your wellness. It's going to be, I think one of the things I've talked about over and over and over again is schedule. Because it's really easy. I mean, think about all of us before the isolation. Anybody here ever wake up in the morning on Sunday or Saturday, go, "Oh, I'm going to watch the morning show, and I'm going to see what was on YouTube. Oh, I heard there was something funny that I should watch." Then all of a sudden it's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon and you haven't gotten anything done. Anybody else on the call? Anybody, you as well, even if you did that. Anybody ever wake up and go, I'm just gonna move over the laundry, right? You wake up first thing in the morning, and then you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna make some coffee. Well, I need to get some weeding done." And then all of a sudden it's like 9 o'clock in the morning, every chore's done, the house is immaculate. Same situation, right? And so what we know is when we get things going, our energy follows afterwards. And so it's really important for us to schedule, right? It's almost like we're on this like endless vacation where time doesn't really matter. You don't have to wear dress pants. You can wear shorts, you can wear sweatpants, you can wear whatever you want. If you don't have video conference, you could go, as long as you want. Never brush your hair, whatever. Nobody's gonna know. So there are things to remember. Keeping a sleep schedule. It's really easy to go, "Oh, I'm going to watch that extra episode of Unorthodox because I really want to finish that." And then all of a sudden it's like 3 in the morning and you're watching, the Hunger Games, the second, part of the third book in movie. and then you're sleeping till noon, and then you're waking up, and so it's really easy for your sleep schedule to get messed up. If you've had sleep problems in the past, it's easier for your sleep schedule to get messed up. Keeping an exercise schedule. If you are a person who used to exercise all the time, but your work day and all the activities afterwards shaped when you exercised, right? So if I needed to be on a 7 o'clock train to get down into Philadelphia to get to Drexel University, well, that meant I needed to get up at 4:30. I needed to be done running by 5:15. So my exercise schedule was really dictated to make sure I caught the correct train so my day could get off, right? And I know I have friends who they really liked exercising when they got home from work because it sort of set them up to get the kids done for the day. And so other friends of mine, their work was their exercise. So if your job involved 40,000 steps for the day because you're constantly walking around, but now you're working from home, those 40,000 steps are gone. So how do we adapt and make sure that we schedule an exercise, right? Because exercise is going to be good. It's going to be good for your mental wellness. It's going to physical wellness. I have a good friend, and she texted me. She goes, "Yeah, I'd been down for a couple days, but we had 2 beautiful days." She's in England, so those are rare. And so she'd gone out to the garden. She said it was amazing how much better I felt after that. Keep a good eating schedule, right? Make sure you stay on top of eating regularly because it's easy for us to forget those things. And any other wellness practice, we want to make sure that we schedule those things in. And remember, wellness, as we said, is a team sport. So if you're going to go for a walk, see who else is going for a walk with you. I've got a really good friend. He lives, not even a mile away. We have done 3 competitions through our Apple Watches together. And in fact, he was thanking me because he's working on a project right now. And he said if it wasn't for the fact that he was desperate to beat me, he wouldn't have been exercising half as much. He did ask for 1 day off because it was killing him to keep up with me. Not because I'm that great, but we're sort of neck and neck usually. And so doing it together, finding out who's going out for a walk, sending pictures together, doing these things. Wellness is not accidental. It never has been, and especially now, it won't happen by accident. So make it purposeful. Schedule those things in for yourselves. So as we're going through this, remind yourself, we're all in this together, right? Lots of people, we're all experiencing worries, loneliness. I'll tell you, for us, for my family, we went and visited my mother-in-law, and it was really lonely being 4 steps away from her. It was hard. It was hard for me. It was hard for my family. So many of us are feeling really lonely, even in a time when, I'm not traveling, which is part of my job, but there's a time where we all can feel really lonely. We're all feeling isolated. We might be having sleep problems. We might be feeling worse about ourselves. And it really comes back to this terrible disease that we've all, contracted, is that we're all human. And so we're all going to have those experiences. So I want to thank you for spending a little bit of your Easter Sunday with me. I'm going to open it up for any questions. But again, my name is Dr. Aaron Brennan. I'm in the Department of Psychiatry at Drexel's College of Medicine. I will try to make these available as well as the slides. I won't try. I'll succeed at making these available. And with that, anybody who has any questions, feel free to ask. Let's see.
I'm just going to say a real quick thank you. This was terrific. And as I typed in, I loved the reminder that we're physically distancing. We can still be social. We can still connect. And I'm totally going to give you credit, Dr. Brennan, but I'm stealing that for the rest of all of this.
It's the World Health Organization. So you actually you're not just going for the guy from Drexel. The World Health Organization calls it physically distancing.
Yeah, I love it. So that's how NAMI Manco is going to roll and how I'm going to roll with it. But I'm thankful for all of your great insights and ideas. And for those of you who are not working from home, again, thank you for being our heroes. Just again, Dr. Brennan, thank you so much for your time and all these great just techniques and good reminders that we all have the keys to make this as as positive as we can. And I loved when you said about being, when you talked about like, I didn't do anything good, like, no, you did do something good. You figured out how to stretch your food out. You just really, really great reminders. So everybody practice wellness, and thanks. I appreciate you, Dr. Brennan.
Oh, you're welcome. I
Have
can't
a
wait
great
to
day,
see you
everybody. For
soon.
those of you who celebrate Easter, happy Easter. And for those of you who celebrated Passover, my best to you as well.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions before we sign off?
Hi. So I attended the one on family to family as well, and I appreciate a lot of what you're saying in terms of wellness being a team sport. I'm a parent of a young adult with severe depression, and I'm trying to determine, and I don't know if you have any very specific ideas for things that I can invite him to schedule in his day in the afternoon. Is there anything around the 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon that is an interactive kind of any good stuff out there in Facebook or on the internet, or anything that would be hey, did you know that they're doing this every day at 1 o'clock? I'm searching for the nuggets that I can put in his schedule.
So I think I'm always a big fan of what is the person into. I sometimes think about 1, 2, 3 o'clock. I mean, I'm oftentimes thinking about like if this person likes cooking. My dinners have become a lot of my friends in all over have been laughing about how much I'm baking. So a lot of times before Passover, when baking's not as much fun, I was having a lot of like fresh bread. Well, 1, 2, 3 gives you a chance for fresh bread. If your loved one likes playing cards, I think there's lots of things online for cards that this person could do. 1, 2, 3 might be a time that they want to include like a learning time, and sort of switching up what you want to do, and maybe learning together, maybe learning separately. Also 1, 2, and 3 is a great time to go out, maybe if you want to get your walk in, because especially during the week, a lot of people it might be a less crowded time to be walking around, depending on where you live. But it might be a good time to get an exercise in, and doing that together. So I'm trying to think of other stuff on Facebook. There's a lot of these like live video stuff and meetup stuff. So those are just some ideas. Playing cards. I mean, that was really surprising. My mom doing canasta was, I mean, not that your loved one's going to play canasta, but playing poker with some friends and stuff like that. So, are those helpful ideas?
Yes, actually, very, very, very helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I do like, or getting your dessert ready. So if you're not going to make the biggest dinner, if you wanted to have dessert, you can make, you bake the dessert, you make the dessert 1 to 3, then make dinner, 4 or 5, stuff like that. So other questions? Well, thank you guys for pulling some time out with me today. As I said, if I can ever be of service, you know how to get in touch with Abby, and I am but a text message away, and she would laugh and say, but I really, I believe that we're not going to be successful getting through this thing successfully unless we all get through this thing successfully. And so I really do mean that. And so be well, be gentle with yourselves, and I look forward to talking to you again sometime. So take care. Have a wonderful Sunday.